first and foremost, just thank you for being here. Thank you for the excitement and energy that's around this film, and just that you all have been sending Dana and I's way. It's truly what's powering us through when, the days are really, really intense right now, and we know this is also our soul's calling. So thanks for being here. I would love to share what we're doing, what we plan to do in this time together. And so I'd love to share a slide about that. And Dana, do you have anything to add?
Just as a quick intro, I'm Dana. I am the producer of Rescued Hearts Film, and Krisanna, the director, is my partner in life, my partner in work. And the two of us created this film and this community. And it means the world to have everybody come together for a time of connection and sharing. And so I first want to thank you all for being here. This film is an absolute labor of love. And as we released part one, oh my goodness, the feedback that we are getting is just blowing our minds. And so I feel very excited about what is stirring right now. And if you haven't seen part one yet, that's okay. You don't need to be here tonight. You're welcome to go on our website, rescuedheartsfilm.com, and get a ticket anytime. But I just want to welcome you all here. We're in for a treat.
And then we're going to show you a scene from part one. And that scene is this beautiful moment, well, series of moments between Aly and her precious wild Mustang, Willow. Aly's here live with us tonight from India. It's very early where she's at. So we're so grateful that she's here. Then we're going to dig in and have a powerful conversation with an amazing wild horse advocate, Grace. She's been such a guiding light for us, and even helping us understand so many things recently. And I think, we're excited even to interact and have a time of conversation around that. And so if you have questions for her, you're welcome to have those while we're chatting, or, we will have a time for that at the end. And then, of course, Wild and Free. This time we're sharing with you a version of Wild and Free that's a part of part one. And it is footage from Freedom Reign Sanctuary. We had an amazing time there. And also we're going to share more about Freedom Reigns in a bit, but I think you're going to really enjoy that. And we also have, the Q&A and reflections at the end. So thank you for being here. This is also the first place we're announcing something very, very big. And that is that the part one screening event we're actually extending it by a day. And it's because we've had some technical glitches, and that's okay. Mercury's to blame, I'm sure. But we've had some technical glitches. And so, we're hearing from people that they're really just wanting that extra day. And we thought, yeah, let's do it. We were not planning to extend when we did this initially, but we're going to give people through till the 28th. So feel free to share if you haven't seen the film. But yeah, I think I wanted to just share. We've been talking about this a little bit on social media and such, but for those of you who are like, okay, these two have had some sneak previews. Now they're sharing the first hour. What gives? We'd really love to see the full film. I know that, and I feel that with you. If it made sense, we would love to release the full film right now. The thing is, we're in a very strategic grassroots distribution effort that involves film festivals. And so we're intentionally just putting our efforts towards making sure that the film can be seen in full at film festivals, which there's so many reasons to that. I don't need to get into all of them, but it's really part of creating the most impact. And then we're able to do these private events. And, I do have some images from some recent private events I want to share. But the reality is, if we made the film available right now, anytime, anywhere, it's super sad to say this, but probably a lot of people wouldn't watch it. And so by doing it this way, in this sort of strategic approach, what happens is it builds energy and momentum. And then we're doing something I don't know that anyone's ever done. We said, well, what if we share the first hour? And so this is a really early share for a filmmaking timeline, but it mattered to us that we share something, and it does kind of feel like its own film. And so anyway, I hope that those of you who are experiencing it or who are about to experience it are moved deeply. And we hear over and over that people share, oh my God, it's everything I needed, or it's completely changed my life or changed my perspective on certain things. And so, I hope that it speaks to you right where you're at. And I don't need to say any more about that, but
I would love to share though for a second. Alina, so the full film is actually 2 hours. So in the past, when we were fundraising to create the film, we created some 20-minute sneak previews. And now, like Krisanna said, we released part one, which is the first hour. And the second half is not really a standalone. So when the full film is able to be released virtually sometime in 2026, after our film festival run, doing community screenings, live events, it will be the full film beginning to end. So you'll be able to watch it congruently.
Okay, so we've been to, if you can even believe it, we've had 8 screenings in 7 cities in 3 countries in the last 2 months. And what's amazing about that is that we're just getting started. This is how much energy is around the film, and the fact that we're sort of just making these in-person spaces, the space in which we share the full 2 hours. It is unbelievable what's happening in these rooms. The amount of laughter and tears and just people leaving with so much joy. And I mean, people are talking to us for hours. I think at one event, they talked to us for like 5 hours straight after the event, one person after another, just how much this film has impacted them. So this is much, much bigger than us. We are trying to be stewards of a message that is so powerful and I think so timely, especially in just some of the pain that's happening in the world right now. And we're ever learning and we're ever growing. So if you want to follow our journey, if you want to see if you can come to some of the events, rescuedheartsfilm.com/events. We have several, I think 2 events coming up in Colorado in the next few weeks. Oh, 3. Here we go. So yeah, just, we'd love to see you there. And if you're interested in having your own event, certainly reach out to us. But now I wanted to move into why we're here. Yeah, I think there's something really powerful to that. And even as I think about why we're here, it takes me back to May. And these photos that you see are photos from Freedom Reign Sanctuary. And May was such a crazy time. I had just spent like 6 months. I think I had 4 days off in 6 months editing nonstop. And I was so tired. And Alicia, the founder of Freedom Reigns, invited us to this sanctuary, which has over like 550 horses. And it was like, we almost canceled because things were a little bit crazy, but it was like everything that we needed. It was like taking a deep breath. And there was something about the land, something about the horses that for me, honestly, it felt like heaven on earth. I could barely process what we were experiencing as these horses were moving wild and free. And you could just feel the safety and, the feeling of home. And also I had a lot of curiosity as to why sanctuaries need to exist and what it is that makes this necessary. And so then I just want to share this moment I had. On the second day, I met this horse named Barbara. And we were riding around, and Alicia had been introducing us to a lot of different herds, and it was magical. It was so magical. And this horse, I mean, the truth is, even looking at this image does something to my heart. I was sitting in the back. I had my camera because I always have my camera, I think. And this horse started to approach me. And it was really like Alicia and Dana were the ones interacting with the different horses. And I kind of keep to myself. But she started to slowly approach me. And then she got closer and closer till she got to this point, and she just sort of just stayed there. And something was happening in me, but I wasn't really sure what was going on. And I realized if I put my hand up, she would kind of shy away. So she definitely wasn't interested in touch. Now, we had no treats. We didn't have any carrots. It was very important. Alicia said, we're not going to have anything with us because, we're just going to be around the horses, and then it'll be like a little less intense. Because if you have treats, it might be, more intense or whatever. So yeah, I just noticed like we were connecting, but for me, the most powerful connection often happens without touch. And so there was something familiar in her energy. Like I didn't need to touch her to feel connected. Eventually she got so close to me that without, my hands were just down. She put her head on my lap, and it was like on my hand, and then it was on my lap. And then it was like her eyes got really low, and she started breathing heavy, heavy, heavy. And I felt this, almost like this invitation to rest with her. It was like she was resting, and I had worked so hard and I was so tired. And it was the first time I felt like I could rest. And something happened in my heart. Something was happening in my heart. And Alicia turned around and was really surprised that Barbara was there, because I'll show you the next picture. this was kind of like, I think it felt like she was here for eternity with me, but maybe it was 15 minutes, maybe it was 5, I don't even know. But Alicia turned around and said, that's Barbara. She's a wild Mustang, and she's the lead mare, and she typically doesn't accept touch. And that was so interesting to me, knowing that she was the lead mare. And we actually have like a little clip that Dana made that went viral, and I'll share that in a minute. But the truth is,
over 7 million views viral. I'm just saying, it was really, really big.
Oh yeah. And the truth is, like, that moment did something to me. And we had just been filming with horses for 2.5 years, mind you. And I had witnessed some really powerful things, but I don't know that I had that my own intimate connection like that. And even just thinking back to that moment, it's like I'm transported to another time, another place, and I feel my whole nervous system relax. And so something happened in the space with that wild horse, and it made me feel like I'd like to learn more. I'd like to really, have a conversation around this. And then we realized, of course, who we're going to speak with next, Aly, that this scene was with a wild Mustang. And we thought, man, wouldn't this be a beautiful conversation? And I know so many of you have stories like this, and I just honor them. But I really wanted to give context to that because it was such a powerful moment for me. And it really, it changed my life. It transformed me. Anytime I go back to Freedom Reigns, I know that I'm going to look for Barbara. Like, she's in my heart forever. So, should I share that video?
Yes, please share the video. Just breathe with it, you guys.
Okay.
This was a really profound moment.
Oh, even just seeing that. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. The power of that moment. And as you can see, eventually it was like I was touching her, and it just felt so natural. And it's not even that I was seeking that, but it's like somehow we were connecting heart to heart. And so it gave me so much gratitude for that experience. Like, Alicia gave us such a gift in that time to breathe and just be, and to recharge, and to really remember the importance of what we were about to release to the world. I feel like it gave us the grounding that we needed for this powerful season that we're in. And so I would love to share just an image that I wanted to show up a photo from Freedom Reigns, and this quote that Alicia has, that's on their website. And she says, "Saving one horse will not change the world, but it will change the world for that one horse." And I'm so grateful to Freedom Reigns. They're the sponsor of the screening. But more than that, Alicia's a really dear friend, and being around her and being connected to her and experiencing Freedom Reigns has taught us so much. And the reality of the work that they're doing is so beautiful, creating home and a safe place for these horses and they're not all wild. Some are just those who maybe were going to be sent to slaughter and were domestic horses. And for me, that's the beautiful thing is there's something really, really sacred in offering that safe space for those we don't know. And maybe in turn, it offers a safe space for ourselves. But all I know is that there I had the feeling of home. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, Alicia. I know Alicia is on this call, and we're so grateful. And thank you for being a big part of making this conversation happen tonight. You really sparked something in us.
I would love to add, Krisanna, very briefly, that people are asking, where is Freedom Reigns? It is in San Juan Bautista, California, right outside of San Jose. However, I will share this is a private sanctuary, and I also need to share that it is full. So it is not accepting more horses at this time. They're maxed out based on the land that they have and the humans that they have to care for these sacred beings. And so ideally, what we want with Rescued Hearts is to educate people and to inspire people to understand the healing power of the horse-human connection. And when we know better, we believe that we do better. And so if we can work on creating safe spaces for these animals that are just so easily thrown away right now, that is what's going to stop the issue of horses going to slaughter or horses even needing to be in a sanctuary. So sanctuaries are beautiful, but they're not the actual answer. And so Freedom Reigns is just a place we were honored to be able to visit and have these incredible exchanges with these horses that we still feel in that space are wild and free. And so it's just an honor, and they unfortunately are at capacity. So yeah, any information, I just put the website in the chat. And okay, Krisanna, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
No, I love that. And I think that's a perfect segue into sharing the short scene that's in part 1, highlighting Aly and her beautiful wild Mustang Willow, and just the synchronicities of having Aly in our film. And then Grace, who we're going to hear from later. Grace was actually, she can tell us, but she was actually at the roundup where Willow was removed from the wild. And we didn't even know this till yesterday. So it's just like, oh my God, it's so cool to see how this is all coming together. But we're just so excited now to thank you for allowing us to share our hearts. And we're so excited to really hear from what I would say are the heroes of the work, the ones who are connecting and really, creating these beautiful connections with these precious beings.
2019, I almost took my life. I was 13. Through my struggles, I told that horse everything, and she would just lower her head and listen to me and just be with me. She kept me alive. She gave me a reason to live. Good 1, good 2, can you do 3? Good, can you do 4? Good. You gonna back? Good. Good. Willow, can I get on? Good. Good job. Yeah. And Willow has taught me that it's all about communication, not control. I don't want to control her. And I don't think she wants to control me either. Oh, don't eat it. Don't excuse yourself. Give it to me, Willow. Thank you. Thank you. Really? Actually, though? Doing some brainstorming and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to teach Willow how to paint. And it kind of became a small business. Sure, snack. You got paint on your nose? She's showed me what it feels to fly on the ground, which I can't explain that feeling. When I'm on her, it's a literal taste of freedom and heaven, if that's possible. You're so good to me.
Oh, every time. And I can't even tell you, when we share the film with an audience, every time people are so moved by that short segment. So Aly, if you wouldn't mind joining us, we're just excited to have a conversation with you. And hi.
Hi, Krisanna. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity. And God, that clip of us, it does something to my heart and soul. And I know it's me and my horse, but there's something about that and the way that you were able to capture our connections so beautifully. I miss Willow dearly. She's here with us in the quantum field, as it were, and I'm really happy and excited to be here sharing about her because she's done so much for me.
I remember when we connected with you, and your beautiful space, and I looked at Dana and I was like, oh my God. What is this? What is this? And it was like super windy and we were worried the audio wouldn't even turn out. And oh my God, like, wow. So there's so much more we even documented, but of course, cutting everything down. So I'm just so curious, like what made you want to adopt a wild Mustang? And like, how did you find her? How did you find Willow?
Yeah, so I wanted a Mustang. I wanted a wild horse since I was little, like as long as I can remember. It's been this sort of childhood dream. Oh, it would be so cool to have a wild horse, to ride a wild horse. Of course, before I got into horses, it was a lot about riding for me. Like I I thought that riding was kind of the goal, is what you did with horses. Of course, once I started working with my first horse, Mocha, I quickly learned that it's not all about riding, that there's a connection that comes with horses, and I've always loved them. Finding Willow was actually a result of losing my first horse, Mocha, because prior to her death, I wasn't looking for another horse. And, but after I lost her, I had this, after going through the initial grieving phases, I had this thought, oh, it would be cool to adopt a Mustang. What does that look like? And so I did a lot of research, and I was initially really dead set on getting a fully untouched horse, so one that was still in holding, one that had no human experience whatsoever. And that just didn't make sense for the setup that we had on the property at the time. So I opted to get a gentle horse, and I started reaching out to tip trainers in my area. And for those of you that don't know the tip program, I think that they've since shut it down, if I'm not mistaken. But it stands for Trainer Incentive Program, and essentially certain horses go from wherever they are in holding to certain eligible trainers that will teach the horses to do basic things like halter, lead, pick up their feet, trailer, and be touched. And it's just a few very basic things, right? And so I reached out to a total of 3 trainers, and only one got back to me and said that she actually had a horse, and this horse was Willow. And Willow, from the very first picture that I saw of this horse, it was like my heart was speaking to me. Like, I knew that she was going to be mine. And so I went out to meet her just within weeks of reaching out to her trainer, and I felt a really deep connection with her. When I first met Willow, she had a halter on her, and she was scared. She was really scared of her life. It was difficult to see in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I was mesmerized by her, and I thought she was the most beautiful creature on the face of the planet. Like, how and where did she come from, and how is it that I'm having the opportunity of meeting this beautiful being? And so the first real interaction that I had with Willow was very profound. After watching her go through a series of I guess behaviors, if you will, the person that was working with her had asked me if I wanted to hang out with her. And so I went in the pen and I took her lead, and she was looking at me. Her ears were all up, and she was, her eyes were wide, and she was scared. She was, with lack of better terms, asking me, "What are you doing here with me? What do you want from me? Like, what's the trade-off? What am I supposed to do for you?" And I just sat with her and I talked to her soft. I'd never been around a wild horse before. And these are some pictures of me and Willow. And anyways, this experience, I sat with her, and right before I left the pen, I whispered underneath my breath, "That's a good girl, Willow." And she didn't have this name before I got her. Just like it clicked. And this horse lowered her head. She licked her lips. She cocked one of her back legs, and she took a deep breath. She gave me all the signs that a horse was accepting that. And for that moment, we felt each other's hearts, and it was just us. It was us and in this space, and we knew that we were going to be together. And within the very next month, actually within the next week or so, she came home. And so it was a process of learning and reaching out to people and connecting with our spirits, really. And that's how I found her.
Oh my God. I just feel your words so deeply. And I had to share those photos while you were talking, because I'm so moved as you're sharing. It's so visual, and I wanted people to have a visual. But could we go back to the photo, and can you help us understand what we're seeing there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the video that's on our far right here with me and Willow, that's the first time that she willingly accepted a halter. Like this is the first time I'd gone in there, and we'd been working at it for a bit. I'd asked her, you want to put the halter on, and she dipped her head in the halter, and I remember being really proud of her. She was yeah, this was like one of our first like real connection training sessions where she was like, yes. Uh, and then you see the one of us in the guitar. We love to explore new things, and so this kind of like this just shows our curiosity. And um, she used to love to like just play with the guitar, and anytime we'd be on a walk, she would find random things she would love to just explore. And then up here at the top, this is like this picture, the only best way I can explain it is my heart outside my body. She's my love.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so touching. I was so grateful when you sent us sort of like a write-up of your love story with Willow, let's say. And one of the things that you said that really deeply touched my heart, you said, she was scared, she was hurt, and so was I. Still touches me deeply. In what ways do you feel like you connecting with her and kind of like finding this, it seems like a deep form of trust, a deep bond. In what ways do you feel like you guys healed together?
It's so deep. So Willow, being a wild Mustang, she was captured and rounded up and separated from her family in 2019. I didn't adopt her until 2021. So what went on between 2019, when she lost everything she'd ever known, up until when she got to me, there's a lot there. There's a lot that this horse went through. And at the time of adopting her, I had just lost my first horse. I had no experience with training a horse, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I think we were afraid of each other, and we were afraid of trust. She didn't trust life. I mean, she was afraid of even the general necessities, such as her hay feeder or her water. And I was in a very similar space at the time. I was very anxious, and I was still battling depression. And it was a time that was difficult for both of us. And so I think in in meeting Willow and being able to connect with her, we taught each other how to trust. And it goes so much deeper than that, because there's a sense of trust that I don't feel like can be embodied in a being that's not a horse. Like that, when they give you your heart, they give you your heart. When they trust you, they trust you with their life. And seeing that in Willow really changed me. And I started to see that there can be a curiosity and a lightness to life. There was a huge sense of healing that went on when we started working together. I think I started to see how, like I had mentioned, life was getting easier, and I was having fun working with her and learning with her and watching her go from this terrified being to this brave, confident soul that was, she tells me what she wants when she wants it, and she's very proud of her opinions. Not to anthropomorphize too much, but there's definitely a sense of that. So I think, to answer your question, we went through a lot of healing and learning and relearning ourselves to the point that we were able to really connect with ourselves and each other in a deeper way.
Oh, I love how you share. And, I think it's really powerful, because what was happening for me when we were at your place is what I was witnessing didn't just feel like tricks. I think there are people doing that, and like, whatever, I'm not here to say anything's right or wrong. Like, everybody's got their own thing. That's cool. But in terms of like what I was witnessing with you and Willow and what we shared, it's like she's doing things with you, but it doesn't feel like a transaction. It feels like a result of deep love and connection. And then, of course, the painting. Oh my God, every time that comes on screen, the whole audience just erupts like a horse painting. Oh my God, this is amazing. And so I wonder for you, like, what can you share about that? And even like the intention around the tricks, or I don't mean to use the wrong terminology. I'm sure it's called something much more beautiful, but I think from a, that was just sort of what I saw, but there was like something so powerful underneath it.
Yeah, so I decided shortly after adopting Willow, I came across Mustang Maddie's work and eventually went through her Horse Human Connection Academy class, which really it got me started in a new way of being with horses, and it really worked for mine and Willow's journey. And so that approach is positive reinforcement, and a lot of what we learned during our like early training time was it was about having fun. It was about uh, bringing out her curiosity, and of course in that I'm getting more curious and we're wanting to play. And so having the tricks that you're seeing is like what we did as a means of exploring our world. And so I mean, even in the clip you saw her doing, I think that would be considered a Spanish walk, of her putting her front legs out, and we're doing that in sync. That all started initially as a way to explore new things, like a pile of rocks that she was afraid of on the property, and I would encourage her to paw, and then she would get reinforced for the engagement of the scary thing as she just got more and more comfortable with it. And so I think a huge part of like desiring to slow the process down for her, especially because she came to me so scared, and uh she was there was definitely a sense of like fear and mistrust and not not really wanting to do, like, she was very guarded. She was a very guarded being. And so deciding to take it back and slow it down for her happened largely based off of me not wanting to break her. I knew the minute I saw her, I don't want to break this horse. I don't want to shut her down. I don't want to take away the wild spark in her eyes. And at the same time, I wanted her to feel like she was being heard. I wanted her to feel like I saw her and that I understood her, because in a certain way I did. And I feel like she did the same for me. But there's a like this connection had its ups and downs, of course, where we were both having to learn each other. Now, about the painting thing, the inspiration from that started from a one of the coordinators in Maddie's course. Her name's Cassie, and in her introduction video, she shared her and her horse painting, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, that would be so cool. And seeing it for the first time, I didn't think that it was a realistic dream. I thought that it was just going to be one of those things that, oh, I'll just think about it. Maybe someday I'll try it out and see how it goes. I don't think me or Willow expected it to become one of our favorite activities to do together. And of course, it started out with new objects. So, we had to learn to be comfortable with the paper. Now we use canvases, but initially it was paper that would flap in the wind, and the paintbrushes. Oh, what are these? What am I supposed to do with these? And so we had to learn how to be comfortable with our tools, and through just listening to each other, and a lot of mirroring went on in that training. Like, there was actually very little treats that I used in the initial training process of getting her comfortable with those tools, and then watching her paint these masterpieces. It was like she was sharing a part of her journey with me through the painting. It's like, when I create artwork, there can be a lot of feeling and emotion and imagery, and even a sense of like wonder in the artwork. And I started to notice that in Willow, and so it's one of our favorite ways to spend time together. allows us both to sort of share in the creative process and feel each other's energies and really connect on a more intuitive level as it relates to the creative expression of art.
Oh, wow. I just love, I was thinking as you shared, to be loved by you. Wow. Like, what a gift. What a gift. And it seems like you feel the same, to be loved by Willow.
Yes.
And even as you're talking, I'm like, some of what you're saying about Willow could even be maybe said about you, perhaps, like the ways in which you showed up that way for yourself. I can imagine. That's how I feel. I guess there was like the feeling I had in your words. And so, we would all love to know, like, how is Willow today? And I'm sure we'll talk more, but I think this will be my last question. And then, we'll chat with Grace. But how is Willow today? And also, in what you experienced alongside Willow, how did that transform you? And maybe even like, what transformation did you see in Willow?
So Willow is doing absolutely wonderful. Currently, she's with her two other herd mates, one that we had before adopting her and one that we adopted after her. And they're currently on a beautiful sanctuary in Oregon. She's still my horse. We're just currently boarding her, but she's living her very best life. There was so much transformation that I saw in this mare. The initial look in her eyes and in her being when I saw her was like, I mean, it was the embodiment of fear. She was the embodiment of fear. And she naturally will be more of a flighty horse. She's not one to like charge, and she's not fighty. She'll freeze or she'll flight. Working with her, there was so much, it was like a butterfly expanding. Like she came out of her cocoon and I watched her start asking to explore new things and start asking to engage in things like running with me, like playing with me, like riding with me. She loves to share these sort of connections. I think some of the biggest aspects that I've learned from her and that have really touched me deeply since working with her have been her confidence, her strength, and her bravery. And her strength, God, just knowing everything that or knowing even a glimpse of what she went through. I don't even know I don't even know everything that she had to go through, but knowing a little bit that she did have to experience, and her strength through all of that to come out on the other side and be willing to embrace a new side of herself and to live this joyful, positive life. And this has had such a huge impact on me, because seeing this fearful animal go from fear, which is a lot of what I saw in myself. Like I would have considered myself a very anxious person with a very low level of confidence, and working with Willow really helped me to bring out more confidence in myself and see that and have more of a positive view on my being as well. So together we shared that, and I am so incredibly grateful for her that horses shared a sense of freedom with me.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you for being here, Aly. I'm sure we're going to chat more. And if you have questions for Aly, you can absolutely share now, or you can share during our time of reflection at the end. But I mean, my heart is just expanding with your words. And truly, it is an honor to know you and to call you friend, because you helped me even consider the ways in which I can show up with more love. And what a gift.
Well, thank you. You're amazing. You and Dana both have changed and touched my life in so many ways. So I'm incredibly grateful for you. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing this with us.
Well, it means everything. And, I'm so excited that we're going to be able now to have a conversation with Grace. And I think there'll be a really incredible weaving even into what we just learned about Willow. And there's more to Willow's story I want to see if we can touch on as after Grace shares, because there's another horse that you adopted named Grace. Okay, cliffhanger. that was also in Willow's herd. So I think that's pretty amazing. But Grace, I would love to hear from you. Grace is actually a friend of Alicia's, and she introduced her to us, and we were like, this woman is a source of power and heart. Like, she is, I called her a wild horse advocate. She is an advocate, I would say, maybe of all of nature. I'll let her speak for herself on this, but Grace is a force. She's helped us so much. She's taught us so much. And so we're excited to have this conversation. And Grace, as I have you come on, and if you could share a little bit about yourself, I'm going to do that poll so we kind of see where people are at. We want to understand who's in the room, like where you're at in terms of your understanding with wild horses. But Grace, please share with us more.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much, Dana and Krisanna, for having me. And of course, Alicia, who runs Freedom Reigns, just so glad to be connected with everybody. So my introduction is that first and foremost, I am a conservation advocate. Currently, I am the digital director of Western Watersheds Project, which is a nonprofit that aims to curb the devastating effects of the commercial livestock grazing on public lands in the West. But prior to that, I spent over a decade with the nation's leading wild horse advocacy organization. They are now called the American Wild Horse Conservation, where I served as their communications director. So that's a little background on me, but I've been working on wild horses for a long time.
I think for me, it's so interesting to understand what got you into this work. Like, why did you develop this interest in wild horses and the work that you've done for so many years? Sure.
Okay, cool. So I started writing when I was about 5 years old. I had a sister who was 6 years older than me, who I absolutely worshiped, and she rode horses. And so, of course, I was like, I'm going to take lessons. It was somewhat short-lived as when I was 16, so I rode for about, over a decade. I fractured my spine, and so I had to just kind of give it up. And then only a few years later, after I had stopped riding, I actually became very interested and active in animal rights. And I had come to this conclusion that what I had experienced and seen with the horses at my barn, where I rode, multiple times a week, was not the best situation for them, and nor was my treatment of them. Because the thing that I loved so deeply about horses, their sensitive nature, the gentleness, the freedom that they would exude when they were released into pasture after an extremely long day, so much of that spirit and those characteristics were just being squandered. I would watch older horses with sway backs repeatedly try to get away from the mounting blocks before people who were too heavy or too painful to carry would get on their backs. I participated in kicking horses really hard in the stomach to make them go, and hitting animals that I love so dearly with a cropped whip to make them do what I wanted them to do. Jump over this, canter faster, go round and around in a circle. It doesn't matter how many times you've been forced to do this today, no matter how tired or how sweaty or how much your mouth foams, you are going to do what I want you to do. And it really just didn't jive with how I show up in my life, with my animals at home, or even, my human relationships. And so when I became reacquainted with the idea of wild horses, it sort of felt like a seamless fit for me, like a coming home in a way, that I was going to advocate to keep them wild, untouched, their true, authentic selves. And so I bring up so much of my background on how I felt about riding, because when I watched Rescued Hearts, just very recently, once we got connected, I saw something really different. And so much of what I disliked about my experience in the riding world and at my barn was this total domination of a very special creature. And, at the time they called it breaking a horse, breaking their spirit. And so watching so many folks in the film respect these animals as individuals and sentient beings, and asking for consent and being patient and not pushing, it really has changed things for me in this very interesting way. The connection that they were experiencing with these horses was really special, and it was reciprocal. And so that was just really beautiful and important for me to witness. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it touches my heart when you share about how the film spoke to you. And I'll never forget when you told us that right after you'd watched it. And I was just so moved that that's how you felt. Because for me, that was my guiding north. Was I really am interested in highlighting people showing beautiful forms of connection. And I don't want to get caught up in what that looks like, but it's like a feeling, it's like an energy. So I really appreciate that is how it landed for you. And, I wonder, because we were just chatting about Willow, how does Willow's story help us understand more about wild horses and sort of like what's happening let's say in the United States right now?
Yeah. So I think first, it's so cool to hear about Willow and her journey. And, she's a very lucky Mustang to end up where she has ended up with Aly. And I think that her story is a really powerful reminder of what's possible when fear is met with patience and control is replaced by connection and respect. So as we, have briefly mentioned, I've been to the area where Willow was born. She actually came from a pretty remote area of southeastern Nevada, which is a state where more than half of wild horses in the western United States live. And she comes from a habitat called White River, and that spans about collectively with another adjacent area called Seaman. It makes up about 400,000 acres, and it's in the heart of the Great Basin. And so this area includes, mountainous terrain and very steep canyons and really broad sagebrush valleys. And it's expansive and it's desolate. It's quiet. And it's a great example of how wild horses generally live in the American West. They're just truly wild. And Willow, she was not alone in this space, rather she lived with her herd and many others. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, because anybody who has seen the film, there's a lot about, horse dynamics and behavior. So, wild horse dynamics are deeply social, emotionally intelligent, and they are remarkably stable. The horses live in these close-knit family groups called bands, which typically consist of a dominant stallion, several mares, and then their offspring. And each band functions like a family. They move together across the landscape, protecting each other and maintaining a strong internal hierarchy that's built on trust and communication. And the stallion plays a crucial role in defending the band from predators and rival males, but it's oftentimes the seasoned, wise, or people call her the lead male, the female, lead mare, the female, who guides the group's movements, deciding where and when they're going to travel to water and grazing areas. And she is the steady presence, that memory keeper, and the one who others tend to follow unless there is danger. So those mares in the band, they form these long-lasting bonds with each other and with the stallion. And they often stay within the same band for years, some choosing to never leave the stallion at all. As the foals mature, young males are typically driven out by the stallion, predominantly to prevent inbreeding. And these younger mares and males, they form bachelor bands, which are these loose, chaotic, temporary alliances that these young boys learn social skills and how to spar, and eventually they compete for their chance to form their own herds, which they do through battle. Winners get the mares who decide to come with him. So they rely on this nuanced communication to maintain these relationships. So just like you've seen with domestic horses, they use their body language. So, positioning of the ears or a swish of the tail, pounding of the ground, they do a lot of that. And along with vocalizations and physical closeness to express, their emotion, to set boundaries, and to comfort each other. And so those relationships are not fleeting. They are forged over time through trust and routine, and I believe shared survival. So Willow did have a family prior to Aly becoming hers. And so if it's okay, and if everybody's cool with it, if I just keep talking, I would like to talk about next what happened to her family and the family of other wild horses. We good with that? Okay, cool. So first, wild horses, for those of you who don't know, are a federally protected animal in the United States. They actually have the same legal protection as the American bald eagle. However, they are treated drastically differently. Wild horses gained federal protection in 1971 under Richard Nixon, who signed the Wild Free Roaming Horses and Burros Act into law after it was unanimously passed by Congress. Nixon gets a bad rap for a lot of things, but he was our most environmentally forward president, if you can believe that, as far as much legislation that was put forth under his term. So the protection for wild horses was warranted, as wild horse populations had dwindled to less than 25,000 animals, and Congress considered them, and in the law, to be fast disappearing. And the reason they were fast disappearing is because they were being eradicated by ranchers and individuals in these rural Western areas that would take it upon themselves to capture wild horses and kill them, most often sending them to slaughter to clear the land for their privately owned cattle and sheep. So today, the vast majority of wild horse herds fall under the management of the BLM, or the Bureau of Land Management, which is an agency under the U.S. Department of the Interior, and it's a land use agency. And these animals were protected under federal law, essentially where they were found. And so these areas that they live in are now called herd management areas, or herd areas, and they're given names like White River, where Willow was from. Horses are permitted to graze on 27 million acres of public land across 10 Western states that's designated as their habitat, which is great, but unfortunately, they also have to share the land with extractive industries, and that includes oil and gas, mining, and private livestock, which is arguably the largest driver behind wild horse roundups, just as it was when they were nearly eradicated, less than 100 years ago. So I don't believe this call we need to get into the private livestock industry that dominates our public lands, but I will say it is a very fascinating topic to discuss and learn more about. This industry is deeply entrenched in our federal government and our land use agencies, and it has very large pockets and influence. And wild horses are far from the only animal or wildlife species that is suffering because of this private industry on our public lands. So I will say that. I think at the end I'll give you some recommendations if you want to learn more about that industry. It really is a fascinating topic that I could take up all of the time talking about. But so moving on, because wild horses have to compete for their resources, which is the grass, with a commercial interest like livestock, they are rounded up and removed from their designated habitats on public lands every year. And the way the government chooses to do this is it's animal abuse. It's anything but humane. So for many years during my tenure at AWHC, I attended and documented and reported on and even trained observers at these roundups. So this is my firsthand experience. I have been to, a lot of roundups over the last 12 years. So what happens is the agency sends in these low-flying helicopters, essentially beginning at dawn each morning, and they scout the area above and target the herds. I just talked about the herd dynamics, and this is kind of the most acute way to see it in action, because upon hearing, the thundering of those blades, I don't know if you've ever stood beneath or near a helicopter even, it is loud and terrifying. And so when that happens, a stallion usually takes immediate action to get his family out of the area. And so he heads to the front of the herd, and wild horses follow suit. They kind of all follow along in a line for the most part, or a cluster. From there, the stampede is on. The horses are run for miles in all sorts of terrain. So if we're considering Willow and her family, they were run on a very jagged and diverse landscape in varying degrees of elevation. Horses can be run in extreme heat and in the bitter cold. There are really no enforceable limits in place for, how far horses can be run during helicopter roundups, the duration of the helicopter chases, and even the temperatures at which they occur. So those roundups are extremely chaotic and very fast-paced. They are hardest on the young, the old, and the injured. In the summer months, it is not uncommon to have several or more foal deaths during an operation. Oftentimes, it's caused by a condition called capture myopathy that you see in wild animals who are under extreme stress, and then they are captured, and essentially their bodies essentially just shut down. They just can't take it. They seize up. It's a really brutal and awful situation once they enter into that trap. It's chaos for a while until those horses calm down. From there, they are then sorted, and these wild families are separated without regard for their bonds at all. So the stallions are sorted from the mares, the weaned foals, and they are weaned very young, are taken from their mothers. And this is the hardest part of the whole operation as somebody who is on the ground, because the horses, like I mentioned several times, are very stressed. And in one instant, their entire life as they know it is gone. And during the sorting and loading, they they call out to each other with these high-pitched whinnies, and the whites of their eyes show, and so many of them scramble on their hind legs to try and escape or even to get to others. It's a really hard thing to witness. And during Willow's roundup, which was in 2019, there were 420 horses that were captured, including Willow. So she was one of 420. And there were 11 deaths. BLM would consider that a success, that there were only 11 deaths. So after they are captured and sorted, the horses are then loaded into stock trailers and they're transported to short-term holding facilities. And these are dirt corrals with thousands of horses in each facility. Oftentimes they have no shade structures or any escape from the elements. There they are branded, they're vaccinated, and then they're sorted again. And some are going to be made available for adoption. Many, though, remain in government corrals for months or years. Others are transferred to long-term holding pastures, which are out of sight and out of mind in the Midwest. They are not well documented and not well tracked. So I have big concerns that they are being quietly shipped to slaughter. And then those outside of, those holding facilities, horses end up in the slaughter pipeline all the time. We see branded wild Mustangs in these slaughter auctions. And then right now, the result of these roundups and removals, we currently have more than 60,000 wild horses stuck in government holding facilities today. And so this entire process, it strips wild horses of what defines them, their freedom, their families, and like their lives in most cases, or their life as they know it at the very least. And roundups don't take into account the intricate social bonds, the herd dynamics, or the psychological trauma that is inflicted on them. And to witness a roundup is to see the stark collision, I guess, between the myth of the American West and then the mechanized force used to just completely eradicate it.
Oh, wow. I so appreciate your heart, Grace. And, it's amazing to me how you're able to share and you've witnessed it firsthand. And the fact that you've been in these spaces with that much pain breaks my heart. It truly breaks my heart. And it just speaks to me, like I honor all the feelings that are coming up because, Grace, you're such an important voice to this. And what it shows me is there's a disconnection in the heart that is allowing these kind of atrocities in the planet. And I just invite everyone to take a deep breath, yes, as we're moving through this, because I think the conversation is beautiful, and we do, there is beautiful work happening, and Grace is going to share that too. But also, I think it's okay to sit in the discomfort of the reality and reflect on how is this possible. And this is my opinion. I'm curious what you think, Grace, but it seems to me like the only way we allow these kind of things to happen is when we're disconnected from our own hearts, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to. It's like it starts here. How I will treat others, including animals and nature, is only a result of how I will treat myself. And I wonder, as someone who's seen this firsthand, like, what do you think? What do you think this is about?
Oh, I think, like a lot of things in this country, a lot of it comes down to politics and money. That is the sad truth of this. But one of the things that I find really hopeful was the 1971 Act is not perfect, but it was passed unanimously by Congress. And the whole reason it was passed was because it was the second largest written in issue next to the Vietnam War at the time. And it was predominantly led by school children. And school children physically wrote in to members of Congress and said, please do not keep slaughtering the wild horses. We want them here. Even members of Congress' own children did that as well. And so Congress couldn't look away. And I find a lot of strength in that. I also recently, because my main gig these days is working with a public lands protection organization. And I don't know how much you all heard about the public lands sell-off, but it made a lot of news that Congress was trying to, and the Trump administration was trying to sell off, millions of acres of federal public lands, and that's where wild horses live. And it was constituency. It was everyone on both sides of the aisle saying, absolutely not, this will not happen. And they forced the Republicans' hands. It can be done. And I feel like if I've worked with organizations that have done polling on this issue, and Americans by and large across both sides of the aisle overwhelmingly support wild horse protection and overwhelmingly oppose horse slaughter. I think these are two areas in which we really can move the needle. The issue is people see it as a Western issue. It's not a Western issue. I mean, it affects the West, but we as taxpayers pay for public lands, for wild horses, for those roundups. We have a say in all of this. You're members of Congress, whether you live in New Jersey or Connecticut or Arizona, they are on committees that make decisions about wild horses. So it affects all of us. And so the biggest obstacle and why these events are so important and why films like this are so important is we have to make people, once people know that it's happening, you can't unsee that it's happening. You can see wild horses being stampeded, sentient animals being stampeded by a low-flying helicopter and separated from their families, and you cannot think that that is okay. And so once people know, they care and they are moved to act. And so our job, I believe, is to be agents of change through communication about what is happening to these animals. So.
No, I think it's so beautiful. And to your point, thank you for sharing that. And I feel like while we're here, if anyone has questions, please feel free. I see one that just came in. How can we help? And that was kind of what I was going to ask you next, Grace, because we talked yesterday about how there are some recent wins and there's some beautiful work that's happening. And I think now that we've kind of felt into the reality, what are some of the things that are happening these days, and how could people if they feel inspired, what are some things that they could do?
Sure. Well, I have three things that I kind of thought about before this call. The first one is really granular. So I want to talk about Willow, because she came from the unadulterated wild, and she had a life of freedom and family and, instinctual knowing, before she was being thrust into a world of helicopters and holding pens and trauma. And what she once knew was completely stripped away from her. But through quiet and patient moments of trust and in a space where she was no longer forced, she rediscovered choice and safety and connection. And Willow went from a frightened and flighty mare to a horse who paints and explores and expresses herself freely. And she has reclaimed herself in a way, I believe. And in doing so, she also helped Aly heal too. And I think that their bond is a testament to what horses in general, but wild horses, are capable of if they're given the dignity to be seen, heard, and then loved on their own terms. And so whether that's adoption or out in the wild, I just think that is that's a big win. That is a big win. The second is that Nevada Congresswoman Dina Titus, and a few others, recently introduced legislation that would ban the use of helicopters and other aircraft for the removal of wild horses from public lands. And so that is a very big deal. It does have bipartisan co-sponsorship right now. And so we need people to send emails to their members of Congress. Krisanna is going to provide a link. Freedom Reigns has a page on their website with a way that you can take action. So there's a form letter that you can just click and hit send after filling out your information, or you can edit it. And editing is pretty important in the sense that just say why you oppose a helicopter roundup. You really only need to add one sentence, but letting them know. There's also a number that I call every single morning when I am drinking my coffee, and it's the Capitol switchboard. So it's the phone number. We'll put it in maybe the chat, but it's 202-225-3121. And that is where you call that number, the Capitol switchboard answers, and they ask you, if you don't know who your representative or senators are, they will ask you for your zip code. You give them the zip code, and then they will direct you right to the offices. And I really encourage people to call. The calls make the most difference when you are advocating for change in politics. And that is because staffers answer the phone, and at the end of the day, and sometimes depending on the office, the week, they have to log those calls and say, what are our constituents asking about? When talking about the public land sale, they said it was the most, for the offices that we spoke to, it was the most written issue that they had ever experienced as staffers. Granted, all these people are in their 20s. They are probably new to these offices, but they were overwhelmed. And if you have phone anxiety, don't even worry about it. Most of these people who are answering the phones are kids. They are 20, 21, 22. Their job is solely to talk to you, the constituent. So I make it a point every morning, no matter how many times I've called, to just call and say, hi, I'm Grace. I'm a constituent calling from Washington, D.C., and I want to ensure that my member of Congress does not, or oppose it. There's a couple of things you could ask for. You could oppose helicopter roundups or oppose helicopters in the use of wild horse roundups. The third thing that I wanted to say that has been good that has happened is, and this just happened last week, I believe, is that through recent litigation, the organization that I work for, Western Watersheds Project, alongside our partners, we were able to halt the roundup of the Kiger and Riddle mountain wild horses in Oregon. And so that roundup is currently off the table pending litigation. At the very least, they will not be attempted to be removed until 2026. So next summer, they were supposed to be rounded up this month. And so that is a big win for them. And so litigation is arguably one of the strongest tools that wild horses have currently, because there is really good precedent for wild horses in the courts. And if you have good attorneys, you can win. So we were able to get that roundup stopped. So some of the other things that are happening is right now, wild horses are currently, the stakes are really high, I should say. The threat of slaughter is looming larger than it probably has in years. The current administration is actually one of the first administrations ever. They tried it in Trump 1 in 2019, and they're trying again in this term to lift the longstanding prohibition on horse slaughter. And that language is currently being debated in the federal appropriations process, the budget process. And if it's successful, if the ban is able to be lifted in this budget bill, it would open the door for wild horses to be slaughtered. And that's disturbing because we currently have 60,000 wild horses in government holding facilities sitting there that could be at grave risk. The good news to that is I'm sure you all know how, the bills work or the bill processes work, but just in case, it goes into the House Appropriations Committee, which is a budget committee. And this is the very first step. So the Trump administration said, hey, we want to lift the ban on slaughtering the horses. We're requesting that you agree with us to do that. And the House Appropriations Committee has already said no. That doesn't mean it can't. It's a good sign. It's a good green light that, okay, we're on the right path, but we still have the Senate Appropriations Committee, we have the full House, and then we have the full Senate. And then they work out the differences between those budget bills in conference committee. So while wild horses, there's less of a threat than there was 10 days ago, that threat is still very serious. There are a lot of organizations, Western interests, so like wool growers, livestock operators, hunting clubs, that are really pushing hard for that slaughter ban to be lifted. Because if they can get the horses out of the holding facilities, they can get more horses removed from the range. So when I'm talking about that call, there are two things you can say. You can ask your member of Congress to oppose the use of helicopters in wild horse removals. And you also can call and say, I would like my member of Congress to maintain the slaughter ban for wild horses in the budget bills. Those are very important things. And we were able, because enough constituents called last time, it was included in the House bill in 2019 during Trump. And we were able to fight it back because enough people called and emailed their members of Congress.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And I think I so appreciate your insight. And I wanted to make sure that we let people know about this beautiful page that you've actually created that we're now linking to. So I'll pull it up here, but we wanted to create a page on Rescued Hearts. That's rescuedheartsfilm.com/learn more. And at the end of part 1, we're sharing this link, and we're sharing it now actually at the end of every viewing of the film. And that learn more page is just a way in which, if you feel inspired and you kind of are like, I just want to do something from here, you can. There's various things. If you're just curious about connecting with horses, connecting with your heart, volunteering or donating, that sort of thing. But what we also wanted to add was like, what does it look like to honor the wild horses? And so we have linked this page. I'll show you to this page that that Grace created, freedomreigns.com/advocate. And .org. Okay, Dan will put it in the chat. but we link to it on our Learn More page as well. And this is really cool because everything that Grace was just sharing, you know, you can use your voice, visit the wild. I mean, the truth is we have wild horses out here in Arizona, and they're spectacular. They're so beautiful. Just being around, like I can't imagine not having even the ones that were close to us, the Salt River wild horses. So Grace has created like this really cool map that you can check out and see if there's any in your area. And one thing I do want to acknowledge too, I can't see my back button. So anyway, great stuff here. Definitely check it out. But one thing I wanted to sort of end our time with, Grace, is like we have a lot of countries represented on, maybe not live, but we have like at least 28 to 30 countries that had registered for this call. Obviously, what we're talking about are mostly wild horses in the United States. But for those who are international, you know, what should they be considering or thinking about, or, you know, how can they be a part?
Yeah, wow. Well, I think, you know, what's happening in the US echoes, you know, some disturbing trends elsewhere, you know, around the world. Wild horses and other wild species are just being displaced in the name of development and political convenience. And so I think at its core, it's like, you know, this question of values, that are we willing to, you know, make space for the wild, or will we continue to erase them one roundup, one budget line, one policy at a time? So I just want to, because I know that like Australia has the Brumbies and Canada has their wild horses, et cetera. But as far as what folks can do, I think it's really important to be, again, like, I mean, this sounds like so simple and so small, but sharing and talking about it. The other thing so a lot of actions that happen in the US, unfortunately, people who are outside of the country can't take actions on because they don't have a US zip code, but there are petitions, and a lot of organizations do petitions. And I know people will sometimes roll their eyes at petitions, and that's fine. But I will tell you that I have hand-delivered petitions that have moved the needle, that have added a co-sponsor to a bill. It does work. You just have to, you know, it's a want to, can do kind of situation. It's not going to work all of the time, but as somebody in this, especially if you spend money in the United States, you have a valid voice in this country, regardless if you're from here or not. And then stay up to date on the organizations that you're passionate about. There's always going to be opportunities to take action. I wish that there was a little bit more that I could say to that, but I think those are some starters for sure.
Well, I so appreciate your heart, and this has been such a beautiful time of connection, and learning. And, you know, I think that's what's amazing is like we created this film, and it was really, really important to me that it be very delicate in its delivery and be in a way in which it's accessible to people, sort of like wherever they're at. And at the same time, what I love about these kind of conversations is we're able to go deeper and really like feel into, you know, both of your hearts, Aly and Grace, both of you. It's been so beautiful just to really feel your hearts and understand more about your own journeys and also what's happening right now. And I think sometimes, like I'm such an empath. And so I really struggle to stay in the know with news or what's happening. And I'm so in awe of people like you, Grace, who are in the darkness, like not because you're part of it, but you're just like willing to look at it in order to bring the light to it. And I think that is such an amazing gift. And my hope is that as we continue these conversations, like even as we had our music composer, Brianna Tam, who created the most incredible music for our film, after she had watched it a few times, she was like, wait a minute, tell me more about the wild horses and roundups. And this is like something I didn't even know about. And it's I think there is something really beautiful to awareness and shining a light on something. And even for those of you who are like, wow, that was a lot, and I don't know what to do from here, that's okay. You know, right now in this moment, you get to just be here. And I think there's something beautiful to just having more awareness. And especially if you were activated, I encourage you to take some time to just be with your heart. And actually what we're going to do is end our time with the Wild and Free song. And I hope that as you listen to the words of that song, it will be some sort of nourishment for your heart. But ultimately, you know, we're here to spread love. And I think these conversations are part of that. And perhaps as we're willing to look more deeply at what's happening around us, to the injustices around us, maybe, just maybe, we're willing to look at the injustices that we've allowed within ourselves, the injustices that we've allowed others to perpetrate on ourselves. And I think sometimes we need that. We need to advocate for those who don't have a voice in order to be perhaps a part of giving ourselves our own voice back. And I think our film is really the integration of that. It's seeking to understand that better. And Dana and I, our hearts are just to understand better. And in that understanding, seeking to love. So, you know, it's hard to hate up close. So we get up close and we look at things and then we share. And I'm so grateful for this time.
And yes, thank you all for joining us. You hung in there with us. Some of this information was very challenging even for me to hear. Some of it was very new. And so I just thank you for being willing to be here and to open your hearts and take in this information, and however you feel led to move forward from that there's no right or wrong. So thank you for being here. I'm excited for those of you who have not been able to see part 1, please watch it before it ends on Monday, now that we've extended it. And Krisanna, if you would like to...
It is, I know we're at time, but it is very important to me. I would love to hear, so as I cue the video, Grace, I'd love to hear if you have any final thoughts or feelings, and then Aly, same with you, and then we'll play the song and we'll end. And we're so grateful to you all for being here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quickly that I know it can get really heavy in talking about wild horse, what's happening to them. And as I don't want to bum anybody out, I do think I've been working on this for a long time. And what I've always said is that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, unfortunately, but the know is growing. The compassionate hearts are growing. I mean, I think we are changing as a lot, we can see a lot of ugly in our nation right now, but there's also so much beauty happening. And I do think that there's hope for wild horses. And these conversations are super important. So thank you for taking the time to listen, because I know that it is difficult to hear about when we all have a connection to these beautiful animals. But I do think change is definitely possible. So I just wanted to leave that, and also go see wild horses in the wild. It's the most incredible experience. If you've watched the film, they talk a lot about interacting with horses generally and what you can get from that. But just going out and sitting with wild horses in the wild has been some of the most healing experiences for me. And so if you are able to take a trip out to the wild, check out that map. If there's an area near you, shoot me an email. I will try and figure out if I can't give you directions on how to get there. But I think that once you are out there and you see what I'm talking about, you are like, you're done. You're a wild horse person. So anyway, thank you. And I will be quiet now.
Well, you do not have to be quiet. And also, I just have to say, I feel your heart. It's so big. And everything you shared was so beautiful. And so it means the world to us that you took the time to do this and that you are behind the scenes doing very, very important work. And I think this is just going to be a catalyst of energy and support. And so thank you. Thank you. Aly, would love to hear anything you have to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening in and bearing with us. Grace, a lot of the information that you shared was very helpful to me. Even just having the reminders to reach out to the people people that are in Congress that manage this stuff. It's a great reminder. And on behalf of the wild horses, thank you for just being here with us and helping them as much as possible and sharing in this journey with us.
Oh, Aly, I love your heart. It's so big. It's so beautiful. Okay, so here is Wild and Free with the footage is set to Freedom Rain Sanctuary. And at the end of this song, we're going to end the call. But my hope is that you will feel the energy of the words. You'll see the beauty of these horses who have found a safe place to call home. And maybe consider the ways in which you can create that safe space for yourself.
A little spark of hope shone on the horizon, but still the sky was dim. I was so alone, no one to confide in. My heart was sinking, so desperate just to find somehow to ease my mind. Now I take my pain and climb. Let's go for a ride, shine into my night. I can feel your strength in every stride. I've been here many times and I've lost this fight, but now I know what your light feels like, wild and free. In your majesty, I can just breathe. You do that for me. When I came to you, I bowed my head in silence. There were no words to say. The closer that you drew, you melted my defiance, and then you led the way. You showed me how to find a way to ease my mind. Now I take my pain and climb. Let's go for a ride, shine into my night. I can feel your strength in every stride. I've been here many times and I have lost this fight, but now I know what your light feels like, wild and free. In your majesty, I can just breathe. You do that for me, wild and free. Oh, I can just breathe. You do that for me. Every time I am by your side, there is no more night. I can feel your spirit shine in mine. I'm finally alive, and I don't have to fight. This must be what heaven feels like, wild and free. In your majesty, I can just breathe. You do that for me.
I could feel all your heart so deeply. And I wanted to add that on that Learn More page, which I just shared in the chat as well, rescuedheartsfilm.com/learn more. We do, sorry, I moved my mic. We do have a link to that song. And I just, my hope and prayer is as we end this time together, as you listen to that song, that the words would speak to your heart and really just anchor that feeling of love, and maybe be an invitation to the parts of you that seek to also be wild and free. And I know that's what happens for me every time. And I also am so grateful to beautiful, beautiful souls like Alicia, who worked tirelessly to create a space for these precious animals. And, being a part, experiencing what we did at Freedom Reigns forever changed my life. And what a gift, what an amazing gift that these horses, these special ones have that safe space. And for those who don't, I will continue to pray that all beings, all hearts, one day will also be wild and free. So maybe join in that prayer together. And if you haven't seen the first hour of our film, that song is what ends it. And so I'd love for you to experience that. But, just want to share so much love for all of you. So much love to you, Aly. So much love to you, Grace. And what a gift it was to have this evening together. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.